Dámy a pánové, vítejte u dalšího exkluzivního rozhovoru v podcastu Čistý střed. Nebudeme to příliš natahovat, mým dnešním hostem je caller PDC a zajímavý to člověk Huw Ware. Huw, welcome to Čistý střed. Don't worry, I won't ask you to repetite the name of the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say you the word darts?
My job, if I'm being honest, at this moment in time. I mean, I remember when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with the game. I was a real manic darts obsessed little boy, sort of growing up and sort of addicted to watching darts, addicted to playing darts, loved everything about it. Whereas now, I suppose when I think about darts these days, because I've kind of step through the curtain, if you like, towards backstage, your perception and your perspective does naturally change with that. And because it is my job now, so it's something that I take very seriously and everything that comes with that, you know. So that's what I think of when I think of darts today. Is it's the best job in the world. I wouldn't swap it for anything, but it is my job.
Yeah, I just started reading the book from Russ Bray that is the best sport in the world. Do you agree with that?
Oh, the best sport. Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, yes. I mean, I suppose there is an element of theatre with the darts, which you don't necessarily get with a lot of other sports. And probably the best thing I like about darts is that it's all on you as the player. If you're a footballer, you could be having a bad day, and 10 other players can get you out of it. Whereas in darts, if you're having a bad day, it's all on you. It's up to you, nobody else, to turn it round. And I think that's the element of darts that I like the most. And it's sort of fascinating to watch that unfold, if you like. Like I say, there is an element of drama to it, isn't there? There's an element of theatre with the crowd, the idea that, you know, somebody could be struggling and then come back and so on. Yeah, totally agree.
You've been a referee for quite some time. You started at 14 years of age. What is the most powerful thought you have from the first night behind the microphone? Because it was a county game, I read. So what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, gosh. So I did Glamorgan Youth, as I've told the story before. We had a friendly match between the youth versus the seniors, and the caller didn't turn up. So I was there to play for the youth, so I ended up refereeing for most of the day. The senior squad said to me that there was a vacancy for the county senior side for a caller. Would you like to come and do it? So I said yes. And the only thought I had was that I really enjoyed it, to be honest, was the only thought. I mean, I didn't know, well, I certainly didn't think at that age, because I think I was about 14 or 15 when I did county for the first time. And by the time I was 17, I was doing the Windmill World Masters on television. Well, I didn't expect it to sort of turn into something like that so quickly. I had no idea whether there was going to be a career there. I just know that I loved calling and I enjoyed calling because I could do it, I think, and I enjoyed the challenge that refereeing darts brought, you know, certainly in a maths perspective, you know, only a county. And yeah, like I say, the last thing I was expecting, though, was for it to go from there to there with no in between at all in the space of 2-3 years. And yeah, but like when they asked me, I was like, yes, absolutely. Again, like I enjoyed the challenge. I wanted that challenge, and I was very lucky that the powers that be at that time decided to take a chance on this sort of young, unproven 17-year-old at a time when there weren't sort of young darts referees of my age about, certainly not on television.
I mean, we can call you like the Luke Littler of the referees. You also came like really quick.
Yeah, do you know, I never thought of it like that. But yeah, I suppose you could, yeah, because I was only 17. Yeah, I never thought of that before, but I'll take that. Thank you.
You have to say to Luke.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've had exactly the same impact on darts referees as Luke Littler has on the sport. I haven't had as much impact on the sport. But nevertheless, I'll take that, the Luke Littler refs. Yeah, great. Maybe not so much anymore. It was a long time ago. But,
yeah. Well, and how did you change from the first night at the county game to now? Because we are refereeing the biggest games of darts, the World Championship, World Matchplay. So what were the main things that changed?
My style of calling, I think, is probably the biggest change. Did you mean in terms of my refereeing?
Yeah. But as well as a person, how did you change?
Oh gosh. So Yeah, so my style of calling has changed, because I remember when I first came along, I got noticed for my 100 call. And it's actually pretty much the same now, except that I've made 2 words out of 3 syllables, which is what I used to do. I used to be very much like 100, like that, and that sort of got caught. That got picked up on by a lot of people. Now it's 100, so I've made it more, But I think that was just sort of inexperience over the microphone. Because if you look at all the referees that there have been, all their vocal styles have changed, from when they first started. Some of that might be consciously and deliberately, like it was in my case in some ways, but also subconsciously. I think as you get older, your voice sort of develops and gets older with you. So naturally, your tone of voice changes anyway, and there's nothing that you can kind of do about it. I mean, even if you look back at some my calling from 3 or 4 years ago, I think it's very different to what it is now, let alone back when I was 17. So and if you look at someone like Bruce Spenley, who's one of the best referees of all time, if not the best, had back in the 80s a very sort of short 180 call. Whereas when you look at when he retired his last years, he had probably the longest. So it's interesting how that sort of works. As a person, I mean, I've kind of grown up. I've had a life and lived my life through darts in many ways, having been involved in it from such a young age. I've kind of grown up through darts. A lot of my life experiences have been through darts. And that's not, obviously, on top of that, the act of coming out and sort of, living my life as an openly gay man through darts as well. But irrespective of that, just all the sort of life experiences I have and all the people that I've met and who have inspired me in so many ways, just by being who they are and how they are. Yeah, I owe my life to darts. I mean, I must say, almost my entire life has been through this sport. So if I was to leave tomorrow, I don't know what I'd do.
Were you thinking becoming like a professional player? Because I don't think you had time for it because you became a referee in such a young age. But were you thinking like going to Q school or something like this?
Okay, so I played for Wales Youth in I want to say the June or July of 2011. It was the WDF Europe Cup Youth. They held it up in Aberdeen, and I played for Wales. It was the first time I played for Wales Youth. And in the room that day who was there? My God, Jeffrey Deswan was there. Max Hopp was there as a 13-year-old. Rhys Griffin was on my team. Jake Jones played for England. Josh Payne played for England, amongst a couple of others as well. But the best player in that room that day was Jimi Hendrix, who beat Martin Adams at the Lakeside quite a few years ago, if you remember Jimmy. And he was the best player in the room. And so basically what I'm saying is you could see the players. We all had ability and we all had talent, but there were those who clearly had it, who you were thinking to yourself, well, they're going to go on and have a good career. I didn't necessarily fall into that bracket. So when it was in September of that year, when they asked me to do the World Masters calling, and I felt as if this might be a pathway into television refereeing, so I would have to give up the playing side of things, it actually helped me to make up my mind, because I thought to myself, well, if I had potential, if I was up there with the Jimi Hendrixes and the Jeffrey Deswans, I would say no to the refereeing and give my playing career a chance. But because I didn't necessarily have it at that age, and I wasn't in that bracket, I thought, well, I've played for Wales. That's probably the best thing I'm going to do as a player. I can always say that I played for Wales, the youth squad. I'll park the darts now, and I'll go and do the refereeing. And so, I mean, I could be 31 years old now, Peter, and still be trying to play, and I still might have gotten nowhere. And I know that if I had said no to the calling at that age, they would have gone and found somebody else, and they would never have come back and asked me again. They would have found somebody else, and somebody else would be up there right now. So it was a bit of a sort of now or never. But playing in the Euro Cup Youth kind of helped me to make that decision. I was an all right player, but I wasn't consistent. I might have a good 5-10 minutes. I mean, we, as a team, we reached the semi-finals that year and only lost out to the Netherlands. Jimmy Van Schie, who's playing really well now, he was on the team that day. So that was pretty much the story, really.
I mean, was it a difficult decision to accept the World Masters, or was it like an easy one because you said you were inconsistent as a player, so you knew that is the only chance? But I can imagine at 17 years of age, you can, or like every decision is very hard. I know it from myself. It was, I don't know, 6 years ago. So was it a difficult decision for you?
No, actually, no, it wasn't. Because of all the reasons I just said, it actually, all that kind of hit me very fast. It didn't really sort of take a lot of thinking time. And like I say, if I'd said no, then I wouldn't have got the opportunity again. They would have found somebody else and that ship would have sailed. And I enjoyed it. I always enjoyed calling more than I did playing, to be honest. I don't know, as I say, because I knew that I could do it. But yeah, I always enjoyed the challenge, and I wasn't daunted by going up on stage for the World Masters. I felt as if I could do it. It was like, yes, give me the microphone. It wasn't difficult, and also like because you mentioned Q scored as well in the previous question. So this was 2011. So I mean, forgive me, but I can't remember whether Q score was even around in 2011. I don't think the development tour, if it was going by that stage, it hadn't been around for very long. There was no such thing as the ADC. There was no such thing as Moda Super Series or things like this. All these sort of avenues for the youth players that they have today didn't exist back in 2011. I mean, it's easy to remember that. It's easy to forget that, sorry.
I mean, I was 9, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's not all that long ago, but the structure of the whole darting world has changed beyond recognition since I started calling, and that was only 13 years ago.
Do people recognize you more during the career? Because I can imagine, of course, you said it, the growth of the sport became very, very big. So do you consider yourself as a star, probably like alongside the players maybe, or you think you are, well, just a referee? But
I know what you mean. It's funny, really. After the World Final this year, I do feel like my life changed overnight. And that was the night that I called the World Final. And I had 10 days where the press, both in this country and some of the LGBT press in America, went kind of crazy for about 10 days. I was on BBC Wales News. I was a BBC website. I was in the Times. I had 2 pages in the Times. Big, huge LGBT publications in this country, like Attitude Magazine, were doing articles on me. Queerty in America. I was on podcasts. I was invited onto a BBC Radio 4's Saturday Live programme, which is a very big sort of topical morning programme on BBC Radio 4 in this country. I was invited on as a guest, and I was sat next to the Scottish poet laureate, Jackie Kay, who is amazing, and the founder of the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, who's a Knight of the Realm. And then there's me. I mean, it's just crazy, And I do feel as if I'm getting recognised a little bit more in the streets now than what I ever used to before. But with that said, the darts is not about me, I have fans and I love them all dearly. But when we're up on stage, it's not about me. It's about the players, and I'm there to do a service for the players. So yes, I have my own profile in my own right. I mean, I'm a global ambassador for Winmore now. I have my own website. I have my own blog. I have my own podcast, which is all well and good, and that's fab. But when I'm up there, it's not about me. It's about the players. And I think even like in terms of my podcast, I like to think that I make it as much about the players as I possibly can. Because if you're a darts fan and you're tuning in for a conversation between Huw Ware and Paul Lim, which is the episode that went out today, you're not going to want to be hearing from me, are you? You're going to want to hear from Paul Lim. So I try and give that opportunity as best I can.
Yeah, I want to talk a bit about Tops and Tails, the podcast you have, because I listened to the episode with Kirk Bevins, and that leads me to a question about the 180 calls. You spoke a lot about the thing that it's pretty impossible to have like original one or to not copy someone. But how did your 180 call develop throughout the years?
Do you know, I out of all the different styles of calling that I have now, I think my 180 is probably the one that stayed mostly the same. I think if you go back and listen to it, I mean, I might be wrong. I don't go back and listen to myself, but I think if you have a look at when I was first calling, my 180 doesn't sound so different now as it does back then. I did go through a little bit of a change with it a couple of years ago, which I'm happy with. And yes, that was a bit of a deliberate decision, actually. Although, yeah, it's a funny one. It's difficult to sort of pin down how does your style change. It's difficult to put down into words because some of it is conscious and then some of it is subconscious. And you might look at it back and think, oh, that works. God knows how I got to this stage, but that works, so I'll keep it. So something that wasn't so deliberate at the start now is. I mean, so the end of my 180 call has changed. I used to sort of go very low on the T of the 180, but now I don't. It goes tay like that, and there's almost a bit more of a sort of joy with it, as it were. I can't remember how I got to that. I must say, I can't remember. I think I must have thought to myself, I'm going to change from the T, but to get this sort of joyful ending to it and how that sort of stuck, I couldn't tell you. I just know that it worked and people liked it and people have told me that they like it. They like the change. So I was like, okay, well, I'll keep it. And that's when you become conscious of it, I suppose, is when maybe when other people tell you. So yeah, it's very difficult to pin down. I mean, if you look at Franz Engerer now on the Euro Tour, I mean, he's made a very big impact, as I'm sure you're aware. And the 180 call that he has is something different. It is something different that we've never heard before, and that is so difficult to achieve. And he's achieved that, straight off the bat. He's come in with something very different, which makes him stand out, which makes him unique. So all power to him, because it's not easy. And it's only going to get harder as more referees come along.
Maybe let's stay a bit with the 180 call, because I know, for example, from Kirk Bevins, he is used to escalate the 180 call with the importance of the match, with like if there are 180s in a row. We're sometimes thinking about doing the same, like with each 180 trying to do higher voice or something like this, because I think sometimes, and I hope Kirk will forgive me, I hope that I suppose that only dogs will hear him, because he's going so high that it's almost unhearable. But so what are you thinking about it?
But he has the voice to do that. And yes, a lot of people love how he is able to change that. I mean, he's refereeing for the nine darter in the world final with Michael Van Gerwen and Michael Smith. He referees that brilliantly. The way his voice changes and he ups it with the as the more 180s are going in, the way he raises his voice to reflect the action that's going on in front of him. It's almost like a performance, isn't it? And he's brilliant at that, and he's got the voice and the capabilities to do that. I mean, I don't have the same voice. I mean, I try and do a little bit of that myself, but I don't try and do a Kirk Bevins impersonation, because that would just be wrong in the first place, but also because I know I don't have the range to be able to do it as well as what he does. I try and do it within my range and within my style of calling, and then he does it in his style of calling, different referees have different styles. And so it's all good.
We also asked our listeners to send some questions to you. So let's get to one of them, because one of the users, Petr Klima, pointed at your path to become a darts referee, because he asked if it was a difficult path or it maybe came with a bit of a luck. It was the first part of the question. The second part, it's your preparation before the match, because the 180 call requires maybe some like voice exercises. So do you have some?
So my path to becoming caller, in terms of whether I was lucky, yes, I was. Yes, I was absolutely lucky, because it would have been so easy for Martin Fitzmaurice, especially, who was the master of ceremonies and the head ref of the BDO at that time. It would have been very easy for him to turn around and say, nope, he's 17 years old. No, that's far too young. Big stage, a lot of pressure, too much for a 17-year-old. But he didn't do that. He gave me the chance. And yeah, okay, fair enough. I like to think that I took that chance as well through being good enough and all the rest of it. But I was very lucky that Sue Williams, Wayne Williams, Martin Fitzmaurice, they all gave me the opportunity in the first place when they really didn't have to. As I say, I was only 17, so I was very lucky in that respect, and I owe my life, my career, to those people. In terms of sorry, what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Like the preparation before the match, like some voice exercises, or the
Yeah,
180s, like.
Yeah, I must say it's funny, really. I don't know whether people sort of think that we must go through some sort of vocal warm ups and things like this, or we might try and test each other on the maths of the dartboard and all the rest of it. We do nothing like that at all. We do absolutely nothing like that. None of the referees do. We turn up to the venue an hour before play starts, just an hour before, because everything else has been done for us. The stage has been done. The security, the floor crew, the media team, the production team have all been in a few hours before us, getting everything ready, setting everything up. I mean, in many cases, the floor crew are there 2 or 3 days before all of us are there to set up and rig. I mean, the amount of preparation and sort of sacrifice that goes into their own personal lives to put the darts on is extraordinary, So we turn up about an hour before. One of the markers will do the sheets for the first game and put those on stage, and that is it. That is about it. For the referees, there is nothing to do. Well, unless there might be certain things that are going on stage at about 6:30, 20 to 7. There might be 9 dart challenges, or bet MGM, 100 points or more, and you get to go to Las Vegas. All sorts of challenges like this that go on from about 6:30 to 7 o'clock, just before we go on air. But apart from that, in terms of actually preparation for the proper matches that night, there is nothing to do. We do nothing. I must say, there's no vocal warm ups. There's no preparation. We're refereeing all the time, bearing in mind, and a lot of matches just roll into one. The amount of times that I'm watching darts gold or whatever, or there might just happen to be darts on telly, and I'll be like, oh, that looks like a good game. Oh, look, there's me. And I'll try to go, did I ref this? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I have no recollection of refereeing this darts match whatsoever. And I can't remember what happened. I can't remember who won. It's just it all rolls into one, So yeah.
Okay, let's switch to the other topic, because I want to ask about the main characteristics of the darts referee apart from the mathematical skills, because that's probably guaranteed. But I'm speaking in terms of emotions, ability of working with the crowd, etc. So if you can maybe evaluate a bit.
Yeah, so the subject of crowd order obviously is kind of very big at the moment in darts. I mean, I think me personally, I try and pick my moments, and I know I've had a couple which have been picked up upon. There was one time in Bahrain when I asked the crowd to stop whistling, and the camera just sort of panned to me, and I've got this look on my face, and it just sort of panned to me at just the wrong moment, So I looked a bit mad. Because I said to whoever it was, I said, stop whistling. So it wasn't sort of best of order or thank you. I'd like to think that through that I'm directing the exact problem, and I'm directing to you, that one individual, because it's a lot easier to take command of one individual than it is 4,000 people. If there's 4,000 people in the crowd who are going to be booing and whistling you, take, for example, England versus Germany, which I refereed. I actually thought that was an amazing atmosphere, actually. I thought that was a very special atmosphere. It felt very different from the normal circumstances. There was something special in the air. Now, I don't condone the booing and whistling, obviously. But aside from that, I thought it was special. In terms of booing and whistling, there were 4,000 people all at once. There is absolutely no way, even if I tried, that they were going to stop. Absolutely no chance. And to be fair to Luke Humphries and Luke Littler, they knew what they were going in for. They knew that was going to happen before they stepped on stage, So, and they were professional enough, and all the rest of it to roll with it, And yes, it was very difficult for them, and they lost, but they knew what to expect before they got up there. They knew what was coming for them. There was nothing that I could do You know, when there's 4,000 people and it's just like a sort of wall of noise, there's nothing I can do. If it's one or two, that is a lot easier to deal with. But even then, you kind of stood there and you're picking up on the feel of the crowd. Because sometimes you might think, okay, this bloke wants attention, so I'm not going to give him that attention. And hopefully he'll cotton on and he'll stop us, he'll stop that way. But then there are other times where you might think, well, I'm not putting up with this, and you've got to stop. And so I remember there was one time on the Euro Tour this year, and there's this gif of me now where I'm pointing like that, aren't I? I'm pointing towards the back of the crowd. There was somebody whistling every time on Callan's throw. Every single time. And that was malicious. That was nasty. That was horrible. And I couldn't stand it. And because I could tell he was right at the back of the room in front of 4,000 people, that's why I've been so demonstrative, is because I want that person right at the back of the hall to see what I'm doing. It's almost like being in the theatre and your sort of exaggerated gestures, you know? It wasn't about trying to make it about me in that moment. It was about trying to make sure that bloke's noticing what I'm doing, you know? Is that I'm onto you, you know? And so it was a big, huge gesture like that. If he was down the front, it would have been something different, you know? And on that particular occasion, it did get better after that. What people forget about Bahrain, because I had a lot of praise after Bahrain. A lot of people were like, oh, good for Huw, you know, absolutely, and so he should, and all that. But what people forget is that there was more whistling 2 legs later on Gezi's throw. So as much as what I got praised for that, it actually didn't work. You know, there's nothing, everything that we do as a referee is going to be after the fact. It's going to be after the whistle's happened. The only way you're going to stop whistling and booing is if you can preempt it. Well, you can't preempt it. That's impossible. Everything we do, you know, I could stop the game. I could take the players off stage. We can throw the guy out. We can ban him for life. We could do whatever we want to do, which I wouldn't be against if I'm being completely honest. I cannot stand people that come to darts and boo and whistle and ruin a game. I can't stand it. But everything that we do is going to be after the fact. It doesn't matter what we do. They have whistled and they've put that player off and they can't get that dart back. There is nothing. The moment's gone. Everything we do is going to be in retrospect. You know? So you have to pick your moments. You have to sort of gauge the feel of the crowd. I try my best to do it off microphone, if I possibly can, because if I do it on microphone, he might stop, but then some smart ass over there might start. And he might start, and he might start, and then all of a sudden we got a bigger problem with 5 whistlers than what we did with 1. So it's not easy. It's very easy to sit there and say, oh, he should be doing something about this. He should be doing... It's not as simple as that. I'm sorry, I wish it was, but I'm sorry to say it's not as simple as that, you know? And also, I remember I did a final in Amsterdam with Dimitri van den Berg and Dirk van Dijvenbode. And if you look back at that game, so it was in Amsterdam with Dirk against, and Dimmy was getting booed and jeered, and it was horrendous what he was getting. But he won the match. I think it was about 11-3, and it was the final. And if you watch that game back, that was a masterclass in how to deal with it. But my point is, so I was stood there and I did nothing throughout the whole game. Do you know why? Because I was getting the impression that if I turned around at any point and said, guys, best of order, I don't think Dimmy would have been too happy with me. I think Dimitri had everything totally under control. And if I turned around and said, best of order, please, which might give the impression to the crowd that they are getting to Dimmy when they weren't, then Dimitri would have been unhappy with me. You know? So you're also trying to gauge that. Well, are the players being affected? Do they want me to do anything about it? Because sometimes they actually don't. There's lots of factors at play here. There's lots of different factors. It's not as easy as what some people make out, quite frankly.
Yeah, I want to maybe stay a bit on this topic because you already mentioned the game between Germany and England in Frankfurt a couple of weeks ago. But I want to ask if even the players sometimes ask you, can you do something with the crowd? Or can you just stay silent? Because, like you said, in the Dimi style, he wasn't like worried about the crowd. So do the players speak behind the curtain, saying, "Huw, can you please stop them," or just don't do anything?
I've never had a row with any player about how I've handled a crowd. I've never had a conversation like that. I mean, if a player was to turn around to me on stage and say, "Could you do something about it?" then I would. But no, I've never had a problem with a player to do with something that's gone on in the crowd. Never.
Maybe let's stay with the crowd and let's stay with the bad part, because I want to ask about your worst experience crowd-wise in your career, if you have some.
Oh gosh, difficult to pick one. I mean, because like I say, different matches roll into one, different crowds roll into one as well. I think. God, what's the worst I've had? I honestly can't think, Peter. I really can't. I wouldn't like to pick out one, because there's been time. I threw somebody out in the World Grand Prix last year. He put Daryl off, and it was really bad. And Daryl showed that he was put off. And I saw him, and I threw him out during the advert break. I mean, that hasn't happened so often in my career where I've actually had somebody removed. But does that mean that was the worst case? I mean, I don't know, really. I thought Gerwyn Price against Nathan Aspinall on the Euro Tour earlier this year was bad. I haven't got a clue what was going on there at all. That was just strange. Really strange how everybody all of a sudden just... And funny enough, that's a good example, actually, of me... Because I said best of order over the microphone, and then more people started. So... I don't get that mentality at all. I don't get the idea. I say stop whistling over the microphone, and then everybody else starts. I just think that's crazy. I don't know what on earth people think they're doing. Clearly not darts fans. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why people think. It's almost as if people think that we condone it. If we're being seen to not be doing anything about it, it's as if we're condoning it, and we're not. I can assure you, we as referees totally agree with the players and everybody else at home that it is not acceptable. But you're playing darts to 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people at a time. This is what's going to happen. If you started playing snooker in front of 10,000 people, I can guarantee you the same thing would happen. You're not going to get all those people to sit in silence and give best of order. I don't like the fact that whistling has come into the game. It is a stain on the game. But what we do about it, I don't really know. And everything that we do is going to be after the fact. It's a shame, but it comes with darts being as big now as what it is. And without these big crowds, we wouldn't have the sport that we love. Unfortunately, there is a downside. And that is whistling. And I hope it goes out the game. I really do. I hope we get to the stage where we can have these big crowds minus whistling and booing. But I can't see it, Peter, unfortunately. And players know that. I mean, a lot of players... if you're playing a German player in Germany, or if you're playing an Austrian player in Austria, or you're playing an English player in England, or a Welsh player in Wales, and all this... A lot of these players are very experienced now. They know what they're in for. They know what to expect, so they can get themselves mentally braced and ready for that. It's not as if the subject of crowd order has only just cropped up. It has been around for quite a long time now. So these professional players, they're good professionals. They're good boys who, the vast majority of the time, are able to withstand it and play through it and win their matches. And all the rest of it. That they know what's coming their way. In a certain game. So, it's and like I say, I've never had a row with any player after a game where they've said, you should have done this or you should have done that. They might have come off and said the crowd were awful, but they've never turned to me and said, you should have done. No, I've not had that.
Okay, let's get off from the crowd topic and go to another question from our fan, because it was very interesting, at least for me. because Romesh Baluchi asked, who is the least predictable player in terms of their combinations during checkouts or when setting up a checkout? Because I can think about Luke Littler, the first one, but is there anyone else?
Yeah, Luke Littler, number one. Michael Smith is another, for me anyway, in my experience. I mean, it's always those players that play off of instinct, who can go for treble 9 tops on 67 1 second, and then 2 minutes later they're going for treble 17 double 8. You know, those that you can't anticipate are the hardest ones. So there's Luke Littler, there's Michael Smith. Dirk van Dijvenbode is another one. Yeah, there's a couple. Those like James Wade and Gerwyn Price, who are very sort of set in their ways, they're probably the easiest ones. But even those, you're always looking out for the 1 out of 10 chance they go a different way than what they normally do the other 9 times out of 10. You know, so even those, you're kind of on your toes. It's a question of concentration, isn't it? You know, it's a question of sort of concentration and focus, and sort of bringing yourself back from this one line of thinking to bring yourself back and then go down this other line of thinking. How quickly you can do that.
Well, maybe I will ask a little bit more about it. How much can you read the game? Because sometimes, as I said, James Wade always going, 42 to tops, but he's going to miss the tops, 4 or 5 times. So do you think that this is the time he could go 6 double 18, 10 double 16, something like this? So can you read in this?
Yes, you can do. I mean, I don't think it sort of affects me so much on the math side. If we're talking about tops and 32, that's not the worst of calculations. You know, so you might think to yourself, oh, he's not been hitting tops much in this game. I wonder if he'll go for double 16 here. But that might be when whether on 52 with 1 dart, and it's whether they go for 20 or a 12, which, you know, to leave either 40 or 32 is not a difficult combination. That's not going to throw me, you know. But yes, you can think like that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can think, oh, he's missed a lot of doubles in this game, or he's not hit tops much here. Oh, his 19s have been good today. Those thoughts can flash across your mind, but they're literally just flashes, you know.
And how much can you be thrown off by some miscount? Because we saw Johnny Clayton, I guess, in Poland going 113 on 123. So how much that throws off the referee?
Yeah, it's the worst thing that can happen as a referee is when a player miscounts, because your first thought is not, what have they done wrong? Your first thought is, what have I done wrong? You know, because the player's throwing, you think, oh, they must be right, you know? And it's like, oh, no, hang on, well, what have I done? Hang on now, let's, you know. I had one with Luke Humphreys in Sheffield, I think it was, where he wanted 120, and he hit treble 20, then tops. So I looked at double 10, he hit another tops, and I thought to myself, hold on now, stop, all stop. What's going on here? And I had to look, and 120 was on the pad, 140 being scored, so it was like no score. And then he said, oh, I thought the first tops was in the single 20. So that's what was going on there. Yeah, I mean, it's the worst thing that can happen as a referee is that you think, well, what have I done wrong? I thought he wanted bullseye. What's he going for tops? Hang on, is that right? No, it's not. No, 113. You know, that's kind of what happens. So not panicking in that moment, I suppose. I mean, I have seen that before. You know, when things like that happen, don't panic. Even if it turns out that they are right. We said that can happen, you know, where you think they're wrong, but they are right. But just don't panic. You know, you have time. Sort it out. And I think that's probably the best bit of advice I could give to any referee about anything that goes on stage. Is don't panic. Take everything in your stride. If you've been thrown by a score, take an extra second. You know, there's no rush. Well, there kind of is, but you know what I mean. Take an extra second. It's not about getting the score out as quickly as possible just to say something over the microphone and just to keep things going. Call the score when you are ready and you know you're right, because it's better to take the extra second and get the score right the first time round than panic and just blurt out the wrong score over the microphone, and then, you know, and then there are issues, you know?
Yeah, we remember 127 at a game, you know? The Paul Hinks miscount.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's become an iconic moment in its own right, hasn't it? You know, I mean, that was funny, you know? I mean, I've had my fair share of mistakes and gaffes, and I know there's going to be plenty more on the way. Throughout the course of my career, I know I'm going to make mistakes going forward because it just happens. I'm a human being, and these things happen. So yeah, it is what it is. It's like spinning plates up there a lot of the time between the scores, the players, the crowd, anything external. It's like spinning plates, and you're just trying your best to not make sure, or to make sure that none of them crash. It's probably the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. Let's go to almost to the end of this interview, but there are plenty more questions before, or plenty more, maybe 4 or 5. But one of the reasons I invited you now is the World Matchplay is right behind the corner, and I want to ask you how strong emotionally is the stage in Blackpool, because somebody says that for them it's even more prestigious than the World Championship. So how is it about you?
Well, it means a lot to me because I used to have a season ticket there as a fan when I was a kid. From about 2008 to 2011, I had a season ticket there. And there were people that we met over those years who had season tickets for years before we did, who still have season tickets now. So they remember me as like a 14, 15-year-old. And now I'm up on stage refereeing it. So there's quite a personal connection for me there. Last year I did the World Matchplay in full for the first time, and I'm doing it again this year, so I can't wait. Yeah, it's a lovely week. It's a lovely venue, great sound system and architecture, great stage. You can feel the history that's there. The format of the tournament, so the top 16 in the world against the top 16 Pro Tour qualifiers. You could argue the 16 most in form players of the year. It makes for some fantastic matches right from round 1 onwards. You have some great ties. So yeah, it's a brilliant week of darts.
Yeah, I want to say more about that because we know that Winter Gardens always provides great stories. But more generally, what is it like to call a game where the outsider gets better of the players like Humphries, Littler, Van Gerwen? Because sometimes, even in the Euro Tour, I can imagine it's going to be very emotional. But how is it, for example, on the World Matchplay?
So when it comes to like sort of upsets and I don't know, people winning their first major, all this sort of thing, that doesn't really sort of enter your head as a referee. You're just refereeing the match at hand. Does that make sense? And you
Yeah.
might think so. These flashes of thoughts that go across your mind, you think, "Oh, this is a surprise." What's going on here? And all this, but your focus is on the job. I remember refereeing Ricardo Pietreczko winning the Euro Tour, and I think I refed most of his games on that final day, and and that was great. And you think to yourself, "Oh, good for him," Maybe something that wasn't expected, but these things happen. This is all part of the sport, so it doesn't really come into it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if there was a historic first round loss at the World Championships next year, then you might think to yourself, "Oh, well, I refereed that." Like when Phil Taylor used to lose first round back in the day. When he lost to like people like Andy Calaby or something like this. These iconic losses, if you like. I suppose if you had one of those, you think, "Oh yeah, I refereed that." But back in those days, darts wasn't on television as much as what it is now, of course. I mean, we see these players all the time. So yeah, it would have to be a pretty big upset, and those kind of upsets are rare, but they do happen. So yeah, you never know. Maybe one day, but yeah, iconic matches. It's difficult to difficult to sort of gauge what my iconic matches would be, because how do you gauge it? A game that has a 9 darts in it, which may not necessarily be the best game of darts overall from start to finish, but there's been a 9 darts, which makes it instantly iconic. Is it the type of match that you referee? So is it the World Final? Is that my best game ever because it was the World Final? Is it a third round match on the Euro Tour, which maybe not many people remember, but it went 6-5 and the averages were 110 and 109? Which darts doesn't get better than that for me. Some of the best games I've refereed have literally been those matches, the third round of Euro Tour 6, you know? Not the biggest darts match in the world in terms of event, but that's some of the best darts you'll ever see. So how do you gauge what is the best game of darts you've ever refereed? Again, there's lots of different factors that come into it.
As well, I want to ask, because there are many referees now, or many, like there are 3 referees on the Euro Tour, for example. Can you choose maybe what matches are you going to referee, or who is responsible for the scheduling and of course for the tournament, and then for the the matches itself?
Yeah, normally we decide it amongst ourselves. In the vast majority of cases and tournaments in this day and age, we decide amongst ourselves, I must say. This year on the Euro Tour, the tournament director has been administering the matches. But in other cases, so like the World Matchplay, we'll decide that amongst ourselves who referees what, you know. So yeah, that's how it works. It's not like I did the second half of the World Final this year, so therefore I'm number 1 or something like this. You know, that's not quite the case, really. I mean, we're all. I mean, dare I say, we're all very good at what we do. Dare I say, you know, I mean, I know I was saying like, I'll make mistakes in the future and all that, and that's fine. But we are all very good at what we do. You know, there's not many mistakes that go on between us all. So it's, you know, it's yeah, we just decide amongst ourselves, really. It's not like somebody says, right, Huw, you're the best darts referee in the world, so therefore you referee the World Matchplay final or something. You know, it's not. It doesn't work like that. It really, really doesn't. You know, that doesn't come into it at all. Actually, there's not that sort of system in place.
Yeah, well, let's finish it with the referee topic, because in a few months we are going to lose another referee. George Noble is going to retire, and we can say you will take over as a main PDC referee with Cobb Evans, because you will be the longest serving. But with Russ Bray and Paul Hinks and as well George Noble, did these 3 mentioned referees give something to you into your career, or did they not? How did that happen?
Oh yeah, I say yes. Especially when I was growing up, you look at all referees, but yeah, I mean, well, in the case of George Noble, you know, I'm trying to think. I don't know whether I've ever told him this. Maybe I have, drunkenly. Maybe I don't know. But I know I don't think I've told him this. He was kind of my refereeing idol. If I had to have an idol in refereeing, it was him. When I was first stepping onto the stage, and I thought, well, how do you referee darts? I looked at him. I think, yeah, he's just been incredible. He's my refereeing inspiration. Him and Bruce Benley, they were my 2 idols, and Russ Bray as well. I think, you know, for the career and the profile that he has and all that. Yeah, so those 3 really, and you take a little bit out of every one of them, I suppose, really, because they're the ones that have been up there. They're the ones that know what they're doing. They know how to handle things, and so you just sort of take the best out of everybody, I suppose, whilst cultivating your own style. Obviously, I mean, I don't try and imitate anybody. So, yeah, it's very sad to lose him. He's been an amazing referee. He's had an incredible career across both BDO and PDC. As far as his refereeing ability is concerned, well, there's not a bad word to say, is there? Not a bad word to say. And even today, even though he hasn't done as much over the last couple of years, when he gets on that stage, even like today, I still think to myself, well, you still got it. You know, he could go on and on and on and just be the best, you know, that there's ever been. So very, very sad to lose him, and he's a very nice man, and it's been a pleasure to get to know him over the course of my time, certainly in the PDC anyway. And I wish him all the best. And yeah, it'll be a sad occasion, just like Russ a couple of years ago. Now George as well. It's a shame really that Russ and George were a very famous partnership, really, I suppose, refereeing partnership over the years, and so to lose one and now the other closely following behind, it's like, oh no. But yeah, they both of them been fantastic, you know. And George will carry on with the Motor Super Series, everything he's doing down there, which is going fantastically well. I'm sure that will all go from strength to strength under his watch. So he's been an incredible referee, and like I say, my refereeing idol, really.
And the last question, it's very traditional for me in every interview I do. What do you think that will be in 5 or 10 years? Because, of course, the sport is growing now because of Luke Littler. But I want to ask you if you think that somebody from the newer generation will come and or dethrone Littler, because he's probably going to be the world number one soon, or sooner or later. And the other things, of course, you are now the ambassador of Winmore, you are the ambassador of LGBT+. So where do you think this all will go in the future?
I think darts in 5-10 years' time will be more global. There'll be more global opportunities. The tour may well look very differently. I mean, I don't know, but it might look very different to account for those global changes. There will be more youngsters coming along. Just in my personal opinion, it wouldn't surprise me if we had another Luke Littler-esque story in the next 5 years. Because you're seeing these stories and hearing these stories of these 10-year-olds hitting 9 darters. You're seeing these 12-year-olds hitting 105 averages, and things like this. So it just wouldn't surprise me if another story like that came along. And I would love to see them play Luke Littler, who would be about 21, 22 years old by this time, in the final. And that guy has been inspired by Luke Littler in the first place. Wouldn't that just be an amazing story? That would be fantastic. I would love to see that, just with my darts fan head on. And there will be more kids either way coming through, who will be Luke Littler's age, they'll be on the pro tour, they'll have tour cards, they'll be amazing players, and they will literally be 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years of age. And they will be taking darts to new heights again in terms of standard and averages. Oh, the sport's only going to get bigger. The sky is still the limit for this sport. As big as what it is now, it's going to be even bigger in every respect in the next 5 to 10 years. There's no question about that. Hopefully I'll still be here to see it.
Yeah, of course. And I'll be glad to ask you in 5 years, how did that change, or how do you view it? But that's it for today. So Huw, thank you very much for your time. And we were supposedly make the... Oh, sorry, I can speak English now. We were supposed to do the interview in Prague, but it didn't happen because you are not arriving, which is a shame. But we will see each other sometimes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I'm gutted I'm not doing Prague this year. I never saw any of Prague last year. This is what life's like on the Euro Tour, right? You see the airport, the hotel, and the venue, and that's it. And that's literally what I did in Prague. I saw nothing of Prague whatsoever. But I'm not doing it this year, unfortunately. Hopefully I'll come back the year after and see you guys.
Yeah, we can manage some, and I will tour you around Prague for a couple hours if you have small time.
That would be lovely. Yes, of course. No, you're on. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you so much, and have a nice day.
Thank you, and you. Take care. Take care, everyone. Bye.